morning. On behalf of the Board of Commissioners here at American Central Court, and as Mayor of Madison, I would like to welcome you all here today. My name is John Ham, one of the 7 Court Commissioners here at the Court. The remaining Court Commissioners are Tyler Nichols, Mayor of Madison, and the current Board Chairman, Ed Hagnar, Mayor of Granite City, and the Economy Venice Township Supervisor, Bob Shipley, Granite City Township Supervisor, and the Executive Director for Metro East Sanitary District, Steve Signal, and Dr. Charles James. This is indeed a great day for the Court District, and a great day for the City of Madison, and a great day for the entire St. Louis region. We are honored to have many dignitaries here today with us, including those in the audience and those here on the stage who will hear from shortly. I want to spend just a few minutes to talk about American Central Court in the region. The Court was formed in 1959 and by Illinois legislators as an economic development tool to the communities of Madison, Venice, and Granite City. The Court's primary mission is to enhance transportation opportunities and promote job growth in the area. Through the work of Congressman Jerry Costello in 2002, the former U.S. Army Charles Bellman High Center here was transferred to the Court District. The property conveyed has made possible because of a program with the U.S. Department of Transportation and Maritime Administration. This conveyance included about 800 acres of land, numerous buildings, including the warehouse area today. The Court staff here partnered with communities over the last years in order to develop the property as a multimodal transportation hub, and to use it as an attraction for the manufacturers and distributors. The Court has planned the development of the property and enhanced into new roadways and rail track construction, and has actively new private investment. As of 2014, American Central Court now owns and operates over 1,200 acres of property adjacent to the Mississippi River, and 17 million square feet of warehouse space, 70,000 square feet of office space, and 150 apartments. The Court has over 70 tenants on the property that employ over 900 jobs. An economic impact study recently placed the Court's annual impact on Madison County at $282 million annually. Its operators at the harbor move in excess of 2.5 billion tons of barge annually, valued at $1.1 billion. Thirdly, the Court's mission to enhance transportation, the Court began planning a new harbor south of Lafayette 27 in 1990, calling it South Harbor. The project envisioned an inset harbor similar to a sister harbor to the north, with the capability of loading, unloading grain, liquids, and general cargo. Funding for projects was difficult. However, it wasn't until the American Recovery and Investment Act came in place in 2009 that the Court had a shot at getting harbor constructed. A new program called Transportation Investment, generating economic recovery. The Tiger provided a total of $14 million in 2010-11 that jump-started the project. To spur an additional $4 million invested in the state of Illinois and $20 million in the Court's own funds to make the project a reality today. The South Harbor project is still under construction, but expected to be completed this fall. Partnering with others has been the key to the Court's success over the years, and now it's my great pleasure to introduce you another partner of the Court District. He represents the 12th District of Illinois, our Congressman Bill Gibbons.
Thank you very much for that warm Southwestern Illinois welcome, and I know that's extended both to the Governor and to the Vice President of the United States. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome my friend and our Vice President, Joe Biden. I'm proud to say that I know Joe Biden, not as a congressman, no as a Vice President, but as a senior military commander, knows the parents of a soldier. For you see, as Joe and Jill's son, Bo, was serving as a soldier and an Iraq veteran in the Delaware Army National Guard, I was serving as the commander of the Illinois National Guard. Annette and I have broken bread in their home. I have stood by, blinking hard, while Jill Biden wrapped her arms around the weeping teenage daughter of one of my soldiers, one of our soldiers, one of those soldiers who suffers PTS. Her empathy, her soundless touch, her love for that wounded daughter of a silently wounded veteran told me more than any speech Joe has ever made. Any man who's good enough for Jill Biden deserves to be our vice president. Now, Mr. Vice President, I know you're at home here in Southern Illinois because it's a lot like your hometown, Scranton, Pennsylvania. Here in Southern Illinois, we believe in hard work. We take pride in our work. Because of the work we're doing here, our nation's economy is getting back on its feet. We must keep that momentum going and our economy growing. Here in Southern Illinois, we're at the intersection of major interstates, railroads, and airports. We're at the backbone of North American commerce, the mighty Mississippi, and home to that greatest of American symbols, the bald eagle. This week, we mark the 5th anniversary of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. We've repaired our roads and bridges. We've invested in high-speed rail lines that run right through here, connecting 2 of our nation's great cities. And major investment at this port provides exports, our exports, to the world. These investments in American infrastructure are like investing in your home by putting on a new roof. By investing in America, we have made our country stronger. We've created jobs, and we've built our economy. America still has work to do. Wall Street is recovered, but we can't rest until every main street in Southern Illinois has recovered. Today we have a champion for that cause with us. Today we have a champion for working people with us. Today we have a champion for veterans with us. Today we have the father of a soldier with us. Welcome to Southern Illinois, Mr. Vice President. And it's my pleasure now to introduce our governor, Pat Quinn, for a few remarks.
Devoted service to all of our service members. He served as Adjutant General of our Illinois National Guard. We had our largest deployment since World War II of 3,700 Guard members who went to Afghanistan. I was there for a few days. I want to thank, on behalf of all the people of Illinois, the General, now Congressman, for his devotion to the families of our service members, to all of our veterans. When they come home, we want to make sure they have good jobs, decent health care, and a decent education. That's a duty of all of us on the home front. Abraham Lincoln from our state, President of the United States, once said it's the duty of all of us on the home front to take good care of those who bear the battle. And that's why we're here today. Because Abraham Lincoln, he understood how important it is to invest. During his time, the Transcontinental Railroad across America was built. Abraham Lincoln knew that you had to invest in order to grow. And we want to say to everybody in our state and our country, if you're breathing, we want you working. We want to make sure we have a good job for everybody in America, and definitely here in Illinois. But the only way to do that is to make sure we invest in our transportation, to make sure that we have the best roads, the best highways and bridges, make sure that we invest in things like the bridge not far from here, the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge that we just dedicated a few weeks ago. And then today, we took a look at this harbor that will be fired up and ready to go by the fall of this year. And it's important to note that we put a lot of people to work in building this new harbor to help this great port district expand and create even more jobs for working men and women. They had to move 350,000 cubic yards of dirt in order to make things happen right here in Madison County, in the Metro East, in the state of Illinois, in the United States of America. And I think it is important, as was mentioned, this is the 5th anniversary of that federal law that put America to work. It definitely helped our state of Illinois build highways and roads, make sure that we took care of our railroads and our ports and our airports. We had to do that in America because if you remember 5 years ago, our president, President Barack Obama, inherited an economic disaster. And with his teammate, Vice President Joe Biden, who's with us here today, they said to America, the only way we're going to get out of this economic ditch is to build and make sure people had an opportunity to have a job. The best way to fight poverty, the best way to fight crime, the best way to keep families together and build a middle class is a job. That's what our Vice President understands, and that's what our President understands. In our state, we had a great man who was summoned by the President of the United States and the Vice President to be part of the cabinet of the United States of America, to make sure our transportation is second to none. And he's been my friend for a long time. He knows how to build and make things. He helped get all of us in Illinois back on our feet economically, building roads, taking care of bridges. We've done 1,771 bridges since I've been governor, over 7,000 miles of road. None of that could have happened without that law that we're celebrating today, without a great former transportation secretary. He's here with us today, and that's our great friend from Peoria, Ray LaHood.
Hello, Southern Illinois. Thank you all so much for coming out. And I'm sure you're wondering why I'm here. I'm here at the personal invitation of my friend, the Vice President. He called me, he asked me to fly out here with him, and I wanted to be here. We are celebrating two things. We are celebrating the fact that it's the 5th anniversary of the stimulus. We are celebrating the idea that the stimulus worked. The stimulus was successful. And you're all proof of it. Around Washington, there have been a lot of stories written this week about the 5th anniversary of the stimulus. The stimulus worked. And it worked because on the day the president signed the stimulus bill, within 30 days of being sworn into his first term, he asked the vice president to make sure the money was spent correctly. And the vice president convened all of us in the cabinet once a week, put a big fire in his fireplace in his ceremonial office, and held our feet to the fire. And what he said was, make sure this money is spent correctly. And for 2 years at DOT, we had $48 million. You never read one bad story about a controversial project. What you read was, friends and neighbors went to work in southern Illinois, in central Illinois, all over the country, building roads, building bridges, rebuilding transit systems, building ports right here in southern Illinois. And so the vice president deserves the lion's share of the credit for making sure that the stimulus money was spent correctly, that friends and neighbors went to work. He did a terrific job. And we're very proud of the work, of the money that was spent, not only in southern Illinois, but all over this country, putting friends and neighbors to work. And there are many people who look back on the $48 billion and wish it had been $480 billion, because it would have put so many more people to work. I want to personally thank for this project Jerry Costello. Jerry, are you here somewhere? Stand there. Let's hear it. Thank you, Jerry. I know you all love your current congressman, but I know you really love Jerry Costello. He must, for the service that he provided. He called me, once we announced the Tiger money, he called me every day about this project. And this is my 4th visit to this site, because I know how important this project was for Southern Illinois and for the people. The other thing we're celebrating here is the vision thing. When people say, what's the vision thing? This is it. The vision of the people here in this district, in Southern Illinois, who saw a piece of property sitting fallow and knew that there was opportunity to put people to work, to rebuild it, to rebuild the port, to create opportunities for the jobs of the people who built the port, but also for the jobs that are created for generations to come. We're celebrating the vision of Vice President Biden. Spend the money correctly. Let's put Americans to work. The vision of President Obama, who said if we can put out there the kind of money to rebuild our infrastructure, we'll get our economy going again. So this is a day of celebration, not just for your port, but for ports all over America, roads all over America, bridges all over America. The stimulus worked. Thank goodness for the vision of President Obama, for people in Congress who passed it, like Jerry Costello, for the leadership of Vice President Biden. This is a day of celebration, Southern Illinois, and you all made it happen. Congratulations. Now let me introduce to you my successor, someone who walked in the door and has taken up the responsibility and has done a great job in a very short period of time. The 17th Secretary of Transportation, the former mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, doing a great job, Secretary of Transportation, Anthony Fox.
It is great to be here in Southern Illinois with my good friend Governor Quinn, and to the congressman and to the mayor, and also to my predecessor, our great public servant, Ray LaHood. It's good to be with you here in Illinois, my friend. Secretary LaHood has said in the past that the Secretary of Transportation was the best job he ever had during his 3 decades in public service. And he's right. It's a great job. And part of the reason why it's a great job is because I happen to serve, as Secretary LaHood did, with the Vice President who understands the importance of infrastructure in building our economy, creating jobs, and assuring that the American dream continues. So it is my privilege to travel with you today, Mr. Vice President, and to be at America's Central Port today, where construction is underway at the new South Harbor. When it is finished, this project will connect 4 interstate highways and major rail lines so that businesses can move their goods faster from the factory to the river, and then down the river to the market. That translates into one of the best 4-letter words in America, which is jobs. At DOT, we are proud that this project has received $14.5 million from our Tiger program, and proud to be here at something of a historic moment for Tiger. You see, it was 5 years ago this week, during some of the darkest days of the recession, when President Obama signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, paving the way for Tiger grants. The Tiger program has been so popular, in fact, that Congress has extended it each year since, which means at DOT, we've been able to invest more than $400 million at 33 ports just like this one around the country. Now, I know that the Vice President will speak more about this in a moment, so I'll spare you the other details for now. But what I do want to say is that while projects like this have helped the economy to recover over the past few years, their benefits will far outlast this administration. The investments that have been made here will still be paying off when the Great Recession is just a chapter in your grandkids' economics textbook. Because by 2050, America's freight network will need to haul 4 billion more tons of international freight than we currently do. Now, to put that in context, that's roughly 40,000 Washington monuments. And much of that will need to be hauled on our waterways and the railroads and highways that connect them. And when that time comes, we'll be able to do it because of investments like the one that were made here 5 years ago. Because we didn't just rebuild America, we are building America in a way that's built to last. Because in our most dire crisis, our leaders had the calm wisdom and the foresight to look ahead, including the leader I'm about to introduce to you right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I can introduce to you someone who is a fighter for the American people and who has worked diligently and with great commitment to ensure that infrastructure has its rightful place in this country's future. Ladies and gentlemen, my good friend, our Vice President, Joe Biden.
To my good friend, and we use that phrase lightly, but Pat is one of my good friends. I appreciate all the leadership you provided, Pat. None of these programs work, I might add, just by some announcement from on high. The federal government says X amount of money available. They only work where you have governors and members of Congress who are believing what we're attempting to do. And Bill, thank you for those kind and accurate words about my wife, Jill. She is today, by the way, my wife teaches full-time. She's a full-time professor at a community college now in Northern Virginia. She taught a number of years in Delaware. And, but on her days off, which are from teaching, which are 2.5 of those days, she teaches 15 credits and no TA. She said, you know, Joe, I have a day job. Right now, she is down in Houston, Texas with former President Bush doing an event at the library honoring veterans and working on what more we can do to provide help for those tens of thousands of veterans that need our help. Every day, General, I have on my day card, and I'll pass it over to you to see, I made sure that my staff early in the morning contacts the Pentagon and gives me a list, an absolutely current list, of exactly how many women and men have died in Afghanistan and Iraq. Today, the sad news is the number went from 6,661 to 6,663. We lost 200%. And we have over 51,880 wounded. But as the general can tell you, the governor can, as commander of his National Guard, that doesn't count the roughly 300,000 soldiers coming back with traumatic brain injury or PSD, traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic syndrome. And so there's a lot more to do. But I know that Jerry, when he was in Congress, as well as Bill, has made it part of their passion to make sure that we take care of those who are coming home and their families. And the truth of the matter is, I'm not sure we'd be here today if it weren't for Jerry. Congressman, your commitment, your belief in the possibilities of what can happen here in Southern Illinois, and with the help of your friend, Secretary of Transportation Ray Hood, this was the beginning of a renaissance. And Anthony Fox, the reason I didn't have to, the reason I recommended him for this job, the president, was he's a mayor. Mayors get things done. Mayors get things done. He was known as mayor as a transportation mayor, and he has taken that same passion here. I also understand the Mayor of Venice, Tyrone Nichols is here, the Mayor of Madison, I've just had a chance to meet, the Mayor of Granite City, the Mayor and the Director of the Central Port, Dennis Wilmsmeyer. But here's a point of personal privilege. There's an old expression back my way. You go home with them and run into the dance. And folks who brought me to the dance, the longshoremen, the seafarers, the steamfitters, the plumbers, the pipe fitters, iron workers, laborers, operating engineers, bricklayers, steel workers, carpenters, electricians, and sheet metal. That's the only reason I'm standing here today. As Vice President, I could have never been elected without them. And they also are not only the backbone of American industry, but the spine. And I'm glad you guys and women are having an opportunity to do what you do best. Do. Pleased to be in Granite City on the mighty Mississippi. You all have been the economic heart of America for a long, long time. For well over 2 centuries, you've been connecting agriculture and industrial power in Middle America with not only the rest of the nation, but the rest of the world. The abundance and industry of this part of the nation is primarily the reason we've grown from a handful of states and a few million people to 50 states and 300 plus million people. Because from the very beginning, we as a nation knew that the key to conquering this vast continent and to tapping into greater abundance was to have the most modern transportation system in the world. We didn't ever use the word in the past, at the time when we were all beginning, but that's exactly what we've been doing from the beginning. Even in our infant stages of development, in 1806, Congress, at the request of the President, allocated money for our first national road from Maryland to Illinois. Imagine instead of the bold leaders we had then, we had the timid leaders we tend to have now. That, in fact, were so timid they wouldn't make the investment. There were 1,000 reasons why in 1806 you wouldn't make the investment. The French were to our west, the Brits to the north, the Spanish to the south. We were far from certain about the future of the country. Many other things the money could have been spent on. But they had the foresight to understand that they had to build the road, to build more roads. This single act was the beginning of an enduring and continual national commitment that was bipartisan in the commitment to connect this great nation and share the bounty for every single American of the assets that each part of the nation possessed and different, so it could all be shared. It's an enduring commitment that's opened the door to exporting projects stamped Made in America, extending all around the world our vast ingenuity and capability. There's always been this basic American belief, I know it sounds corny, except probably here, that Americans believed there wasn't any physical impediment they could not conquer. There wasn't anything that they could imagine that they thought could not be done. I mean that literally. To make the dreams of the American people a reality, regardless of the levels of physical or economy. That's what made us the greatest economic power in the world. And continue the relentless effort to expand and modernize. That's been the story, the history, the journey of America. It's that basic. We built roads through inhospitable terrain and territory. We laid ribbons of steel over 3,000 miles long. We tamed rivers. We even reversed the direction of Chicago, which I don't quite understand. No, I'm joking. But, as a nation of John, in 1808, we started carving out a thing called the Erie Canal. Governor Clinton of New York. When you think about it, an astounding undertaking. An astounding undertaking. Moving from the city to what were the far reaches of not even totally inhabitable area. The canal transformed the commerce from east to west. And by its completion, they're 363 miles long. What did it lead to? It led to over 12,000 miles of inland waterways across 36 states. Some of those canals larger than European rivers. In the midst of the Civil War, in the land of Lincoln was in the midst of a war that was anything but appearing to be soluble in 1863. But what did he do? He went to the United States Congress and he said, build me a railroad from the Atlantic to the Pacific. And we will take all this hard-earned scrap cash we have in the divided nation, and we will pay any railroad for every mile of track they lay. We will pay them to do that. Think about it. Think about how far-reaching that was. Who cared at the moment during the Civil War what was going on in the Dakotas, what was going on in Idaho, the state of Washington? But the best way to describe it is the way Lincoln described it. He said the best way to predict your future is to create it. In 1883, we built a marvel of the time. It's called the Brooklyn Bridge, connecting New York and the boroughs, unleashing incredible dynamism. Literally unleashing so much dynamism at the time. We saw this throughout the 19th century. As we entered the 20th century, we knew we had to keep pace. As automobiles emerged, President Eisenhower laid out the largest public works project in history. In 1950, he came up with the interstate highway system. Imagine where we'd be had he not made that investment at the time. Ladies and gentlemen, at the time, he opened up a whole vast array of opportunities that no one could have imagined about the interstate highway system. And so every place we go, everything we do, everything we've done has been simply to unleash access to any place in the United States, shortening travel times, opening vast parts of America, connecting our towns and our cities. Again, unleashing incredible economic activity. Think of what happened in the construction of the Intercontinental Railroad. It's led to a $400 to $500 billion investment in rail across America, tens of thousands of miles. And it doesn't even count the investments we made in ports along our coast as well as our inland waterways. Hundreds of millions of dollars in good-paying jobs. You look at the ports along the way. Savannah, Georgia, we need to widen the port deeply. Already over 265,000 people in the state of Georgia, their job directly depends on that port. Put another way, if the port shut down, they lose over 250,000 jobs. In South Carolina, the port of Charleston, in Baltimore, in Philadelphia, in Galveston, Texas. It is amazing. Most people don't realize how much of the economic growth we have and the jobs they have far from ports depend directly upon the existence of a port. People don't make the connection. It's understandable they do, but they don't. Jobs that you can live a middle-class life with. And I know my colleagues behind me have heard me say this a lot. We have a lot of very smart economists who work on this. And when you raise the issue of middle-class they say, well, it's $49,160 or $52,000. They have this big division. That's not my definition of middle class. Middle class is being able to own your own home, not rent it. It's being able to send your kid to work that you can safely know that you can get there and back without being mugged, without being molested. Send them to a school that if they do well, they have a chance to get to college. If they get to college, you can find a way to get them there. In the meantime, you may be able to take care of your own elderly parent or parents and hope that because of your work, you'll never have to rely on your children. That, to me, is the definition of what constitutes the middle class. And so, folks, those jobs are more and more scarce. For the last 20 years, they've been shrinking. We have to open up the aperture for that avenue to be used. That's ultimately what this is all about. And you know, most people, as I said, don't understand how much economic growth and how many people having middle-class jobs that can raise a family are provided as a consequence of our infrastructure. Does anybody think any other major company in the world is cutting back on infrastructure? I've traveled over 800,000 miles on behalf of the President of our country, Senator, and sworn in as Vice President because I allegedly have some knowledge of foreign policy. I can take you to ports and airports and destinations, but if I blindfolded you and took the blindfold off and said, now tell me where you are, it isn't to think you in America, but you're not. You're in Beijing, you're in Hong Kong, you're in other parts of the world, you're investing. And guess what, folks? Businesses go where infrastructure exists. Because when infrastructure exists, it brings down the cost of doing business, the cost of transportation, and it attracts people. But it's impossible to distinguish between our constant improvement in our infrastructure throughout our history in a way that's consistent today. You know, when we decided that it's been 5 years since this got off the recession we inherited, and it's the worst recession since the Great Depression. The only thing that kept it from being a depression is what most economists now point out was the bold decision the President made to invest in recovery. Before the President and I lowered our right hand on the Bible, raised our right hand on that cold January day, that month alone, from January 1 to January 20th, we had already lost that month 820,000 jobs that month. During the Great Recession, we lost over 9 million jobs. Trillions of dollars of wealth lost, markets crashing, banks closing, home values plummeted, foreclosures skyrocketed. On our first day, we were told we'd lose millions more jobs if we didn't do something. We're going to lose millions even if we did something. It would take time to catch up. So we did something. Passed the recovery. And I'm proud that the administration released its final report to Congress this week detailing the most successful economic recovery legislation since the New Deal era. The report notes that the Recovery Act saved and created 1.6 million jobs a year from 2010 to 2012. It also helped to save us from a depression, and plan that we could, in fact, generate long-term prosperity. And the question is, how did it work? Well, we focused on 4 things. First, we provided intermediate help for folks who were truly hurt by the Great Depression. For millions of Americans, we cut middle-class taxes, extended unemployment insurance, provided loan assistance for small businesses to hire, expand, and retool, just as the credit and lending markets froze. With the Recovery Act, poverty rate, without it, the poverty rate would have been 1.7 percentage points higher, and we would have 5.3 million more people in poverty by 2010. The second thing we did, we helped states fill the budget gaps that were a consequence of the recession. We provided money for states to prevent layoffs of teachers, cops, firefighters. States receive $90 billion from Medicaid programs, so critical benefits and service were slashed for the poor, disabled, and our children. The third thing we did was make sure the Recovery Act was transparent, accountable, and went to the best projects that enable us to rebuild our community. After the President signed the Recovery Act, we had lunch once a week together. I spent a lot of time with him. I wrote him an 80-page memo to try to help him shape that single-space memo on what I thought we needed to monitor. And I slid it down the dining room table to him, and he looked at it, he slid it back, and he said, "That's great, Jim. Now you go ahead and do it." That wasn't supposed to be part of the bargain. By the way, it's the last memo I slid down the table. All kidding aside, as the governor can tell you, I was on the phone with mayors and governors almost every day, making sure the Recovery Act was implemented fairly and efficiently. I traveled across the country, visited a number of Recovery Act projects, because I knew if we didn't do it better than any program had done, we would never get a chance to do it again. Everywhere I went, the main question that was asked is how can these investments help grow our communities and our middle class? The final report makes clear that the answer was do it the right way. We provided the public tools to report waste, fraud, and abuse, and we hit the mark. The Republican leader of the investigative committee in the House held 6 months of hearings, thinking that it was proven not to be a particularly useful undertaking, and reported that less than 1% of the Recovery Act's investment were found to be fraudulent or wasteful. No other program in the history of the United States of America, over $800 billion, met that test. And now it's a standard for all of them. The fourth, most directly affecting here, is we invested in long-term economic health through investments in education, clean energy, broadband, healthcare, and infrastructure. Since 2009, because of the Recovery Act and other infrastructure investments, we improved more than 350,000 miles of roads, more than 6,000 miles of rail, and we repaired or replaced more than 20,000 bridges in America. Folks, the Recovery Act is the largest public works project since President Eisenhower laid out the interstate system. And all of you here, the American Senate Board, are continuing this American story of boldness and doing big things that are so deeply ingrained in national history. And that's why the Recovery Act investments called Tiger grants have been so critical. We have created men here, good friend Ray Wood, we have a vision to bring these grants to life. And Secretary Fox has continued them because it's such a huge bang for the buck. I mean, that parenthetically, for every dollar we invested in the Recovery Act, we took tens of billions of dollars off the side. The state came up with it. Business comes up with it. So what we did was essentially prime the pump. That $800 billion totally spent generated almost as much on the sidelines. People were not investing. In 2009 and 2013, we invested more than $3 billion in private grants across the country, but it leveraged an additional $13.6 billion in state and private partnerships. But that's always how it worked. It wasn't a surprise to us. That's always how it worked. These grants will significantly improve the way we finance and strengthen the capacity of the port. And we can see it right here in Granite City. You're part of our 12,000 miles of commercial inland waterways across 38 states. And you're the major artery of all that commerce. They're responsible for transporting more than those inland waterways. 60% of the country's grain exports every year, 22% of our domestic petroleum, 20% of the coal used to generate electricity. If waterborne cargo was diverted to highways and railroads, truck traffic would double on our interstate highway system. Rail tonnage would increase by 25%. Folks, our inland waterways are the absolutely critical ingredients to the transportation network. And the Mississippi River is one of our most important interstate waterways in all of America. With America's central port, strategically located to pay a huge economy. And the third largest inland port in America, this port excels. 2,500 barges carry 2.5 to 3 million tons of grain, steel, petrochemicals, and other bulk goods a year. 60% of the cargo, about 825 million, is outbound and exported. And more than 1,400 workers and their families here in Madison County depend on jobs supported by the port. What you do here is incredibly important. But the port is also almost 60 years old. And the location in the North Harbor makes it tougher and more expensive for companies to ship more cargo. And that's why the Tiger grants are so important. The thing we tend to forget is all of as you build this port out, there's a certain knowledge, absolute knowledge. For the next 30 or 40 years, you're going to have to build it out more and modernize it. No single infrastructure process that you do says, well, we've got it done now. That's it. It constantly has to be modernized. The grant helped hire workers who install the new levee relief walls, laid down the new main line of rail track, and refurbished the green elevator. All of these increases in port efficiency, and all of these increases generate more activity, more business. And the grants are now helping more workers build a new South Harbor, just south of Block 27, on the river. I just checked it out. It's incredible what you're doing. A new harbor will be the transportation gateway, so business will be able to ship 1.5 to 2 million more tons of goods a year. That's jobs. That means jobs. Not just here, but the jobs in the factories that remain open because of the access to water you're providing. Imagine more reliable shipping from Chicago and the northern plains down the Mississippi and the Gulf of Mexico. Imagine cargo passing directly from Granite City to the Port of New Orleans without having to pass through a single line. It's incredible, it's efficient, it saves money, it draws business. It's no wonder businesses are moving to the port and investing $300 million of their own money because of what they see. I've seen the same ripple effect play out here in mobile homes across the country. Folks, that's the key point. But for the Tiger grant, there's no way the state or private sector could have completed the infrastructure project like this. It's not all the federal government, but without it providing the seed money, there is no reasonable way it could have been done. There is no doubt that every dollar of public investment in infrastructure has a multiplier effect on job growth and private sector investing. Folks, these are the kinds of investment that we should do no matter what, even if we've never gone through the recession. The Society of Engineers estimates we have over $1.7 trillion in unmet needs in modernizing our infrastructure. So with our economy raging, which we never ever had, we never had a recession. This is worthwhile and important to do to stay competitive internationally in the 21st century. These are the kind of public investments that contribute to the nation's economic growth and our dynamism. And folks, it hasn't been easy. But because of the grit and determination of the American people, we've turned the corner. We recovered from the worst financial crisis in a generation faster than expected, or what history would have suggested. Our economy has created 8.5 million jobs. The last 47 months, every month increased. We've seen the fastest growth in manufacturing since the 1990s. More corporations are coming. There's an outfit called Boston Economic. And they do a survey every year. They survey all the American companies who are invested in China and ask what their plans are. This year, 50% of the companies, American companies invested in China, say they want to come home. They want to come back. There are a lot of good reasons for this. One, all the data shows American workers from all that are some Chinese ones. The cost of energy to build a factory and run it is about 7 times cheaper in the United States than it is either in Europe or in Asia. You don't have to worry about your intellectual property being stolen. There are courts that can adjudicate fairly the differences in contract disputes. But most of all, what they're most looking for is continued investment in infrastructure so they can compete with any other place in the world. We have to do more. But I've never been more optimistic than I am today. I got elected as a 29-year-old kid, and I was called a young idealist and optimistic. You notice now, when the national press refers to me, they call me the White House optimist. Like I'm a kid, as my grandpa Finney would say, just fell off the turnip truck yesterday. I've been there longer than all. I'm optimistic because the answers to our problems are not that complex. Just unleash American ingenuity. Unleash the potential of Americans to do whatever has to be done to rebuild the skeleton of this great country. There's no other country in the world that can compete with us. We are by far better positioned than any nation in the world, to command the economy of the 21st century. And that's not hyperbole. But a critical part of that is to continue to invest in infrastructure so we have what we've always had before, the most modern infrastructure in the world. It attracts business, it keeps business, it creates jobs in building the infrastructure, and it creates jobs in the factories and manufacturing that goes on when they have that infrastructure moving. I'm on the Mississippi, so I should probably quote Mark Twain, who said this way, and I quote, "Is not a book to be read once and thrown aside, for it had a story to tell every day." Ladies and gentlemen, as modern as we're attempting to be, it's the oldest story in the history of the country. Build the most modern infrastructure in the world, and the world will come to us. Thank you for what you all are doing.